What's up, everybody? It's the Benchwarmers, and we are back for our NFL Power Ranking series. This is episode day number 13. And before we reveal to you what team we have as the 20th best team in the NFL, please like and subscribe. It would mean so much for us and would allow us to get better content like this and more out to you guys. Without further ado, let's talk about the number 20 team in the NFL for the upcoming season, the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, the Saints actually had a pretty good year last year, ending up 12-4. Definitely the best team, at least last year, that we've had so far in our power rankings. With that record, they made it to the wild card and beat the Bears in the infamous Nickelodeon game before facing their division rivals in the divisional, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they lost to them, obviously, as the Buccaneers ended up winning the Super Bowl. Overall, their offense was slightly above average. It was the 12th best in the league, but Michael Thomas was injured for most of the year, and Drew Brees also missed some time as well. And we got to see Taysom Hill start a bit at quarterback, but it was really their fourth best defense in the NFL, which carried them to their 12-4 record.
In the NFL draft, they had some interesting picks. Obviously, because they were a good team, they did not have an early pick. So their first pick was at number 28, in which they selected Peyton Turner, defensive end. Now, he wasn't widely projected to be a first rounder. He was mostly projected to be in the second round. And he definitely has high upside, but he's still a little bit raw and has spurts of greatness. But if the Saints development staff are able to get something good out of him immediately, then he could turn to a viable starter immediately. And knowing the Saints' track record, I think that they probably can do that with a guy like Peyton Turner. Additionally, they took Pete Werner and at the 60th pick in the second round. He's a linebacker, and he was actually projected third to fourth rounder, and he was taken at the end of the second round. And the issue with him is that he's a bit too overly aggressive and physical and breaks down as the play goes on. So that's something which requires coaching. And I think the Saints also have a pretty decent coaching staff, so they should develop him. I don't know if he'll be an immediate starter, but he'll definitely be an NFL-worthy player as the time comes. Finally, another interesting note is they took Ian Book, quarterback from Notre Dame, with the 133rd pick. And Ian Book was one of the best quarterbacks in college football for several years, playing alongside some of the NFL players who were currently in the league. He led Notre Dame to the playoffs in multiple seasons. And although he wasn't anything astounding physically, he was definitely a very solid quarterback who could show up in big games at times. And he has had some memorable performances connecting with some NFL-worthy talent.
The Saints had an interesting draft, and their offseason was actually relatively eventful. So they didn't make any major trades, but they did a lot of signings. So starting off with some players that they re-signed Jameis Winston, Quan Alexander, and Marcus Williams to pretty big deals. And I think these are good signings because these are important players. They also signed some new players like Chris Hogan, wide receiver, and Devontae Smith, who is an experienced veteran at running back. And now for the players that they lost Drew Brees because he retired. They lost Jared Cook to the Chargers. They released Emmanuel Sanders, and he was signed by the Bills. They also lost Trey Hendrickson, who had a breakout year, 12.5 sacks, to the Bengals, and they lost Janoris Jenkins, a corner, to the Titans. So they actually lost a lot of players, but they also signed a lot of players. So I would actually say this was slightly below average just because they also lost a quarterback and didn't really find a sufficient replacement yet, like some other teams like the Colts did. But that being said, this is probably the best that the Saints could have done for now. So it was a decent offseason.
All right, now moving on to our rankings of the Saints. We have them ranked on average number 20, which is definitely a huge step down from where they were last year, but I actually have them just slightly lower at 21. And this is because I just think that on offense, they're really going to struggle because Michael Thomas, their star receiver at least a few years ago, is going to be out for the first half of the season. And the quarterback situation is very interesting. We don't really know whether it's going to be, well, we know it's going to be Jameis Winston, I believe, but I don't know if he's going to be a solid quarterback for them going forward. And they didn't really make any major improvements in the draft like some of the other teams did, with maybe Peyton Turner being their best pick, but he's not going to make a huge impact immediately, I don't think. And overall, I think the Saints defense really overperformed last year with Trey Hendrickson having an uncharacteristically amazing year. And now that they've lost him, I don't think the Saints defense is going to be able to recreate what they had last year. So this is going to be maybe average, slightly above average defense with a below average offense.
I think very similarly to Andy, I had the Saints ranked as number 21. Obviously, Drew Brees is gone. They lost some important offensive pieces and some defensive pieces like Trey Hendrickson and Janoris Jenkins, and on the offensive end, players like Jared Cook. I think that the quarterback situation is very messy. I still don't trust Jameis Winston or Taysom Hill. I think what this reminds me most of is Jameis Winston in 2019 on the Buccaneers, a really good surrounding cast, and probably this Saints team is worse than that Bucks team. A really good surrounding cast and Jameis Winston. He'll have a lot of yards. He'll have a lot of interceptions. This was his 30-30 year, and I think that it will be a similar result. I think they'll be around 7 to 8 wins. Also, their schedule is pretty rough, and their division isn't getting any easier. So I think that they'll pick up a couple of other L's there, which were guaranteed dubs in previous years.
I sort of agree with both of you, but I'm a little bit more optimistic. I still believe in the Saints, and I think that they're a very solid team. Just looking at their supporting cast, they still have really solid players offensively. Their O line is really good. They have Alvin Kamara. They also have some pretty solid receivers. And I think this reminds me of the Patriots last year, but it's the Patriots with a better offense because I think the Saints defense still really solid, especially in the secondary. And their D line's pretty good too. Even their linebacking core is pretty good. I won't say their defense is all around solid. But the Patriots went 7-9 last year, and I think the Saints will get around a similar amount of wins, but 7-10, just because they're a little bit better. And I think Jameis Winston is better than Cam Newton. So the Saints aren't going to be great this year, but I think they're going to be slightly above average.
But that wraps it up for this episode of our NFL Power Ranking series. Let us know whether you agree more with Rohan or with me and Aki. And also don't forget to like if you liked the video, or let us know why in the comments below if you did not like it. And also please subscribe because we are on the road to 100 subscribers, so it would mean a lot to us if you did. But this is the Benchwarmers, and we're signing out. See ya.